The reusable face mask. You can make them reversible. It's up to you. But you will need one template. I did use my Cricut to cut this out. You will also need 2 6-inch elastics. If you do not have elastics, you can use old hair ties, or you can use your scrap material to make ties to go around your head. A good pair of scissors, some pins, chalk. I just have a little block chalk, just to mark out my design, where I'm going to sew, where I'm going to cut, things like that. A small iron, not necessary. Fabric of choice, tight woven cotton. These are my options I have. I also have some paisley and some black, all tight woven cotton. This one's got a shiny side and a not so shiny side. So these are options. I am making these for clients. We're not able to get face masks. Those aren't an option with the shortage going on. So these are perfect for us. If you leave a hole in your mask, you can put in the N95 filter if you can get one. Some people are using vacuum filled coffee, whatever you're comfortable with, but for me and my usage, just a double layer of the tight woven cotton is all I need. So once you select your fabric, make sure your right sides are together, and we're gonna trace our pattern. I've already done that, and you're just gonna do a couple pins. So I've pinned at the half moon shape, which is this guy right here. I've traced out 2 of them with my chalk, and I'm gonna cut them out, and then I'll show you the next step from there. So once you get your 2 shapes cut out, it's kind of what they look like. So we'll set one aside. We'll scoot our machine up. Don't mind my machine, it is very old. So biggest thing with your machine, make sure you have the stitch you want. So I have a single straight stitch, tight stitching. My thread is pretty loose. I've just learned that this is a setting that works the best for me. 1/4 inch seam allowance. So for me, that's right at the edge of my foot. And then just sew at whatever speed you're comfortable with. I'm going to do that locking back stitch. And if you have a lot of these, you can do some chain sewing. Just kind of inspect it, make sure you got everything sewn how you like it. So there's one sewn. So I'm going to leave right sides together for now, and I'm going to go ahead and sew the second one. Alright, I'm going to zoom you back out. So what we're going to do next, is you have a little corner right here. My thread options probably aren't the best for doing this on camera, and I apologize. So you're going to cut that corner on both sides. And this just removes bulk. And then along the seam allowance, just give it little nips. Don't get too close to your stitching. You don't want it coming apart. So just how many ever you're comfortable with. So what that will do when we go to open it, it's gonna help us press it. It's gonna lay flatter. Can't really see it in there, and I apologize, but it helps. You can skip it if you want, if you're not worried about it laying down and looking super pretty. Now we're gonna put right sides to right sides, and we're gonna pin it. So make sure you get your tops to your tops. I start in the middle, meet my middle seam with my middle seam. This is also where you decide where you want to flip it at. And when I say flip it, I mean turning it right side out. I sometimes do it here, but if I want to leave an option for a filter, I'm going to do it down here on the bottom of the mask. Like I said, my use for these, I don't need to put a filter in. These are just for clients that can't cover their own coughs or can't cover their own sneezes. And it kind of contains them where they're coming from and not risking exposure to anybody else. And there is a shortage of PPE right now. That is why a lot of people are making these. PPE is just that protective equipment Personal protective equipment is what it is. So just pin it wherever you feel like you need it pinned. I don't pin the ends just yet. So you open up your corner down here. This is the edge piece. So open it up. Make sure that it's towards the corner. I leave a little bit sticking out so I know exactly where my elastic's at. And take a pin. Some people don't pin them, some people just stick them in as they're going. I pin them because I'm not very talented. So just pin your elastic. Make sure it's not twisted. And bring this one up to this corner. Like that. Grab a quick pin and push through. Some people sew over their pins. I was taught to never ever sew over my pins. So I do pull them out as I go. Biggest thing you want to make sure of is feel your elastic where it's at in here in your design, because when you go and sew your edges you don't want to get it caught because then you can't use it. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin my other side of my elastic over here. And like I've said a few times now, these are not the N95 masks. You can put a filter in here, but the filters are hard to get, and I prefer to leave those to the health professionals that are actively involved with the pandemic. The doctors that are doing the testing, the doctors that are treating the patients with the illness. This is just to contain those coughs, sneezes, sniffles. These are also good to put over the N95 mask to keep them in better shape longer. Some nurses and doctors are having to reuse their mask or share their masks. This kind of helps keep them nicer longer, keeps outside fluids and stuff like that off of them, keeps them clean. These are machine washable. Those N95 filters, most of those are not washable or sanitizable, unfortunately. So once you get everything pinned, you like how it looks, all your edges are meeting up, you'll pick where you want to sew. I like to sew from here all the way around and end here and use this as my turning point. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. And make sure when you are where your elastics are, you do a very good locking stitch, because you don't want those elastics coming out. Wouldn't be the end of the world. You can always fix it with quick hand stitch, but I like to get them done and not have to worry about them again. Just make sure you got your seams here laying flat before you go and sew over them. Kind of move that elastic back. Make sure you're not going to sew over top of it. Alright, take that last pin out on the side. Alright, take that last pin out on this side. Alright, the needle down, connect your foot, and rotate. It's the easiest way I've learned to turn. Like I said, I am not a professional seamstress. I don't do this for a living. Alright, with the needle down, you can lift your foot and rotate. It's the easiest way I've learned to turn. Like I said, I am not a professional seamstress. I don't do this for a living. Just trying to help my guys out that need it. Like I said, I am not a professional seamstress. I don't do this for a living. Just trying to help my guys out that need it, my clients. Put your nails down. You can rotate. Now if you do, I've done this before, if you accidentally sew your closure shut, quick seam rip, you're good. Especially if you're definitely... Make sure your needle's down. You can rotate. There's a slight curve in it, so make sure you're following the curve. There's a slight curve in this, so make sure you're following the curve. Make sure your elastic's out of your way. Pull your, should be your last pin out. Alright. Like I said, if you're chain sewing, you can just keep going, making them. So at this point, we've sewn around the entire edge, nice 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm not a professional, please don't critique my seam allowance. I know I don't make the straightest stitching. So we have right sides together. And now we're gonna flip. This part is actually the easiest I've made projects where flipping was a pain. But since we sewn these elastics in that first step, you can reach through and grab the elastic on the other side and just pull through. I'm gonna turn my iron on. Pressing is optional. I've learned it makes it a little bit easier. So once you get it out, just kind of finger press. I'm finger pressing to get those seams out as much as possible. And then you have your raw edge right here and get that tucked in. And like I said, if you were to keep this open, I would do this by hand. But you could stitch this around. That way you could put your filter through. Because this entire cavity is open. So if you want to leave that open, do a filter. That's for you. Go ahead and do that. I am not, like I said, I'm not making these as N95 masks. Easy Press Mini. I have it on the lowest heat setting. I kind of roll it out with my fingers and pull it out where I need it. And I pull it tight, helps me get a good seam. Just make sure it lays nice and flat. You don't have to do this by any means. I just make it easier for me doing that last stitching around the edge. Personally, I've had quite a few people ask me for them. People that are immunocompromised. We got our basic shape of our mask. I'm going to go ahead and do that last bit of stitching, and then you're good to go. Your mask will be done. So I'm going to start with that open edge first, because that's going to be the most important. And you can always just close this and call it good. Alright, and then just pull and trim your threads, and you're good to go. Alright, so once you get your threads trimmed out, that is what it looks like. So you got that slight little curve for the nose, the nice little ear elastics, and a nice pocket for your face. There you go.